a sense of community when you're free. Rolling through the mountains, rolling through the valley, rolling through paradise with me.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the show. You know, when people are on Facebook, before I invite them to my show, I usually read their profile because I want to see what they're all about. And there could be a lot of information on their profile. This one's kind of interesting. It says teacher, actor, director, writer. On Facebook, because I have lots of information and I share my toys. Isn't that nice? Ladies and gentlemen, Stephen Atkins. Hello, Stephen.
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. Now, I know you said you got a bit of a sunburn today.
Yeah, I'm in Australia. I have a place here, a place called Mooloolaba. Sorry, it's hard to say. And we're just north of Brisbane. And the weather's been quite cloudy, but the sun is still quite strong. So yeah, I do look a little pink.
So what's the current temperature there?
I think it gets up to around 28. We're in the middle of summer, actually. So it's a summer Christmas, which is very relaxing. And nice. Usually entails a lot of eating of prawns and shellfish. It's quite a nice Christmas.
It sounds awesome, really. So when you're not there, you're on the faculty at the University, Capilano University?
Yes. I've been on faculty at Capilano University for, well, over 30 years now, actually. I started when I was very young, 26. So I've been teaching for a very, very long time. So
what do you teach?
I teach acting. I have also taught directing, and I've directed some shows. I do theater history and performance history, and also conceptual approaches to performance, which includes new media, such as how does internet media and social media affect things like entertainment, journalism, and new forms of theater. So there's forms of theater that are done quite often in the contemporary world, which incorporates what you're doing right now, interviewing people, getting their perspective, and it's a bit like live reality television. It's very interesting.
Right.
Yeah.
Are you also an actor?
Yes, I am. Yes, I do act occasionally. I'm very busy as a teacher, very busy as a director and a writer of books. But I do act. I did have an agent for a while. My preference is to work in live performance, and that's really because of the immediacy of it.
Yeah.
The fact that we really get to do things on stage that the film industries are catching up to right now. And I've just always found it to be incredibly satisfying. And you can do a project in 3 months rather than 3 years.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So tell me about your writing.
Sure. I've written a book called Crosspoints, and it's an acting method. And really, it's very interesting because acting methods for actors, and this is based on the 20th century, acting methods can be a bit like being in a religion, right? They kind of develop a lot of faith and a lot of attachment to their method.
Right.
And I sort of came into the field of acting through the 1980s, and that was the postmodern period when art was really challenging the tropes of the modern age, and kind of approaching it with a bit of a punk attitude. And I've always really treasured that in my past. And so this book really combines elements of my past training as a very young actor, which I learned in Vancouver, with other acting that I picked up in Los Angeles, New York, London. I've even trained in Eastern Europe. Wow. So it's really kind of a melting pot of some of the best techniques and how I've put them together, and in what I consider to be a very non-judgmental, non-dogmatic way. I really believe that acting should be possessed by the actor, and they should feel that they're really expressing themselves through the work. They aren't expressing Stanislavski or another acting teacher. It really is about owning the work themselves.
Right. Yeah. I tried acting, you know, I did okay with student films. I really enjoyed that. That was so much fun.
It's a great play. Yeah, that's a great way to cut your teeth on it. And students are so grateful to have somebody in their film. So you're really supporting some future artists.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And I did on stage stuff, mostly like the vagina monologues, which is another thing that I really liked, you know, because so it's not so much acting as I mean, I love being on stage. I love being in front of a camera, but I'm not really a good actress.
Yeah. Oh, I wouldn't say that. Everybody has an actor in them.
Well, you know, you're right. I've had two different acting teachers, and one I think that looking back, I think his method wasn't, I don't think, for me, because I tend to be a little bit quirky and different. And the second acting teacher said to me, he said, you're quirky, and that's a good thing. So, so it made me feel better about myself, right?
Yeah, I think those are very, very important things in acting pedagogy, to first of all, not hold the student to a standard that's outside of them that they feel they have to reach towards.
Right.
Acting is such a personal thing. It has to do with using your emotions and using your imagination in a way that you can tell a story effectively and that your emotions show up.
Right.
And if you're not comfortable in your own skin and owning your own quirkiness, then you start to do false things and you start to look for approval. And those are things that can really harm an acting performance and harm an actor's progression.
Right. Now, I would think with all of those years of teaching, you must have seen some wonderful students, wonderful actors, right?
Yeah. No, I actually feel very, very blessed because I'm in a job that I love. And I started acting at a time when, like, I'm LGBTQ, and so in the 1970s and 80s, it was very, very difficult for us to be expressed in the media. We were present, but usually in a way that wasn't our voice, our experience. We were portrayed in a way that was not us.
Right.
And so I kind of made a decision at that point not to betray my tribe, to use a colloquialism. And I really wanted to create my own work. And I found a lot of support in the independent and avant-garde theater scene, in the independent film and music scenes as well.
Right.
And so as I say, I really love my work. And the thing I love about it is not being in the center of the spotlight, but to be on the side and really cheerleading people and putting them in a place where they succeed and they feel really good about themselves. So as a consequence, I've often seen theater in my own little studio that's moved me, and I don't mean to brag, but it's moved me more than what I see on television or sometimes in the most successful commercial theater. So I have seen some amazing performances, and the most beautiful thing about them was that they were just one-off. They were just for us in the room, in a very intimate performance space.
Right. Nice. I remember, I was just thinking about, because when I've taken classes, I remember twice seeing a student that they stood out. They just stood out as really good. And unfortunately, one of them was a girl and she had no confidence in herself, and I said to her, you're the type of person that doesn't matter what you say. People are just listening to your words, your every word. And she just didn't get it. And it was the saddest thing to see.
Yeah, the biggest battleground in the first initial stages of learning to be an actor is to really, as you say, be comfortable in your skin, know that you're heard. And sometimes people can be so self-convinced or self-programmed that people aren't, that becomes the biggest first hurdle. Yeah.
All right. Another thing I noticed, like one teacher, we would do scenes on camera. And then he would have us, he would have us look at ourselves. And there was a young man who, on camera, he looked so different than in reality. Like the camera did not flatter him at all. Yeah. And I thought, I wonder if that's the way he sees himself, So
it's very interesting. The camera is a distorted eye. And it also, it does flatten. And I don't, these all sound like they're very derogatory terms. Say it flattens the performance, but I think camera performance is really about imagery, and also the camera is such a fine eye. So it's so focused on the face, and we as an audience are really programmed to respond to faces. It's in our genetic code, and so belief and truth is really important when you're on camera. And in performance, there you have that added element. There's that added element of the person's presence, their breathing, and these are all things that affect everybody else in the room, because again, we're a very social animal as a primate, And I have a friend, a flatmate in London, who I stay with occasionally when I'm in London now, and he was a film composer. And when you see a film scene with no sound and no music underneath it, it's weird. It's very strange. It feels like it's happening in a vacuum. And when he does his job very well, what he does is he replaces that sense of the person's presence and the emotional quality of the atmosphere. And he does it very, very well, and it makes it seem normal. But you're right, the lens can distort reality.
Right.
And another aspect of acting is to work within that distortion. It's very interesting.
Now, we mentioned that you're a director, and I would think that having done acting, you have a little bit of maybe a foot up when it comes to directing.
Yeah. So I'm a very interesting unicorn in terms of being an artist. I love music. I'm not musically inclined. I can't technically play any instrument, but I do appreciate the theory and the underlying thought of music as a discipline. I'm really fond of film and the cinematic language that people carry in their minds, where they can put two images together or see two things, and it creates that montage of story in people's minds. I think that's why people love film, perhaps more than theater, traditional theater anyway. And also, as you say, being an actor and working with students at the very earliest stages of their career has made me very sensitive and very empathetic towards the actor's experience. So yeah, as a director, I really I don't like to manipulate an actor into a thing that's going in my direction.
Right.
I look at acting as a collaboration between a story, the art form itself, the actor, and maybe the director is somewhere in there. Kind of nudging all those three things together to make a beautiful moment. Yeah.
Right. Acting is quite a fascinating thing. I know on Netflix, I'll watch shows from different countries, and a lot of them are from Korea, and if the acting is so different compared to the North American type of acting.
Yeah. So different countries and different cultures have different languages of emotion, different ways of being emotional in front of each other. Right. And they also, I think, have a very different aesthetic eye. I mean, I was watching a Dutch film just the other day on Netflix, and the thing that really occurred to me is the way that the story sequences and the way the characters and the story unfolds just has a different feel to it. And I find it very, very refreshing as an artist, but also just as a person who lives in the contemporary world, to see a story told through another sort of set of values and another language, not only just a spoken language, but an emotional language, an aesthetic language, and just seeing different cities and how they're filmed. I mean, this was filmed in Rotterdam. And I just went, oh, it's very, very cool. Rotterdam films very beautifully.
I don't think I've seen any Dutch films, but I've seen like from Norway and like Sweden and, like I said, Korea, Japan. They're all so, again, different and interesting because they're different, right?
Exactly. There's the Norwegian noir, and then the Korean sense of farce. I mean, that the Academy Award-winning film from a couple of years ago, Parasite.
Okay.
I thought it was a very brilliant, very edgy take on kind of what we would call in European society, we would call that a farce.
Right.
And yet Parasite is so dark and very satirical of privilege that it just comes out differently, not in a way we would expect it.
Right. And now getting back to your teaching for a moment, I was just thinking about like, because of stage and on camera is two totally different skills in a way, I guess you could say, right?
Yeah.
Do you teach both?
I do, yes. What I do is I teach primarily stage work in the university because that's really the equipment that I have. I have a room.
Okay.
But I coach in LA, and I also coach in London. And in those situations, I'm coaching camera acting. But again, there's a point where the two disciplines really kind of meet. And at that point, that's where my pedagogy sits, is the idea of understanding the story, understanding how it relates to you in a way that your emotions will show up. And you don't have to fake them. They'll emerge.
Right.
And a really good friend of mine, who's a very powerful director here in Australia, said to me a wonderful thing. She says, well, theater acting, there's a craft to being on the stage, a craft to making things readable and exaggerated in a way that the audience can see them silhouetted in the optics of being far away from them. And those are physical skills and sort of muscle memory that's not needed and can interfere when a director is directing a film. And by the same token, that has to be sort of brought in and made very truthful and very expressive for the camera. And at the other side of the coin is that the person who has been trained for camera must learn how to hold a room. They have to learn how to possess their whole body, not just hear up.
Yeah.
To use everything they have, their hands and everything, which in camera acting is really distracting, as you can see by what I'm doing now. Using their hands, using their full body, and using their orientation in space and their voice to really kind of direct the audience's eye around the space, because in camera work, the audience has their active eye is the camera and the editing sequence.
Right.
So it's quite a different set of skills, and I think the best actors do both really, really well. Yeah. And in Canada, it might not be so much the case, but in Australia and London especially, all of our film actors are also our great stage actors. They really do very well. Yeah.
Right. Now, how did you get into coaching?
Oh, you kind of fall into it. You sort of teach so much. And then when you meet your other actors out in the field and you sort of go, well, I can coach you for an audition. I was riding around in Los Angeles in an Uber once, and I was on group ride because I was trying to save money. And I'd say 30% of the other people who got into the Uber with me were actors on their way to an audition. So I kind of took the opportunity to say, well, I'll run your lines with you if you want. And I thought to myself, I could operate a really lucrative business being the Uber driver acting coach. But
mobile coach.
Coaching is an interesting thing. It sort of just comes out of a spirit of generosity. Like, oh, I'll help you out with that. I'll give you a point of view.
Nice.
And I think coaching is it's different than teaching. Coaching is more being like a bit of a cheerleader and really collaborating with the actor on where they want to go. So you make sure their vision of the role emerges as the brightest part of the session.
Right. One of the things I think about, like here in BC anyway, like most everything is in Vancouver. So people like, I live in Chilliwack, and so if you don't have access to a vehicle or whatever like that, and you want to be even trying out for commercials, for instance, you drive into Vancouver, you do a 5-minute audition, and you go home again. Why can't they bring out more to the Lower Fraser Valley?
Yeah, so you're kind of hitting on something that's a bit of a raw nerve for me when I'm in Canada. So I don't mean to be a snob. I work in very many different countries and very many different environments, and I love being in Canada. I was born in Canada. But I think being born there, I have a right to have a little bit of a complaint.
Yes.
And that is that in all of these other countries that I work, there's a sense of community and joy around being an actor and making things for your friends. And there seems to be a kind of like, oh, it's not professional, you can't earn a living at it. And there's a kind of a snobbery that happens in Canada that you must be in the industrial complex of earning money and so forth. And I think that in other places, in Australia here, I don't live in a very big city. I live in Mooloolaba, which is up on the Sunshine Coast. It's a very, very small town in the hinterlands. But there's regional theater, and it actually draws people from the cities out to see this regional theater. People from Melbourne come up into Noosa.
Nice.
And participate in and see these small, there's a kind of a festival-like attitude. And I think that's probably the sort of the root of the problem, is that rather than thinking of it as a job that you must do and slog through the rain and get that 5-minute audition and worry about it all the way home, regretting every choice that you made, that instead to approach this with a feeling of joy and a feeling of playfulness and inclusion in the community. Using out here in Australia, there's so much Aboriginal and multicultural representation, and they use live theater as that chance to sort of bond with the greater community, rather than waiting for a funded TV spot. They create it for themselves using the church halls, the Legion halls, the festival spaces they have access to. And I think that is what makes it valuable. And if almost everybody that I know who's involved in arts and has a long career looks at the audition and looks at the TV work and those residuals that you get from doing 5 lines on a serial as the kind of side job. and that there's a greater job that the actor has, and that's to be themselves, continuously explore their own story and the stories of people around them. And in a sense, I think it's somewhat akin to being a journalist, you know?
Yeah.
Observing, recording, and, you know, adding clarity to what's going on around us.
Right. Wow. It's really fascinating. I love it all. You know, I love hearing about it. I love when I did participate, you know, it tells so much. You know, I would encourage anybody to do it, you know, even for shy people, introverted people. It really does help you step out of yourself a little bit.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. No, it's a pedagogy of the self. You know, you can't grow as an actor without growing as a person as well.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you very much. I really enjoyed this. Now, just on camera, I'm going to just say to the audience, thank you for watching. You've been listening to Stephen Atkins. Now, you do have a StephenAtkins.com, I think, right?
That's really out of date. That fell totally off my table during the COVID pandemic.
Okay.
I'm going to be updating it very shortly because I have a Spanish translation of my book coming out very soon.
Nice.
An app as well, which helps actors sort of like record their sessions that they do, their improvisational sessions. They can record it on their phone in an app.
Right.
And also a little thing that helps actors put a role together by laying out cards and putting the cards together and making creative associations through that. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff that's going to appear on StephenAtkins.com, and a link leading to the larger website of crosspoints.com, which isn't even up yet, but maybe 5 years from now when people find this on YouTube, hopefully it'll be something.
But your information, the information for your book will be there, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, great. Again, thanks, Stephen. And thank you, everybody, for watching the show. I hope you enjoyed listening to Stephen. I sure did. And I figured, well, you know, you're like me. Otherwise, what are you watching for?
Yeah, exactly. This is all fun. Thank you so much for reaching across the world out to me while I'm over here. I'll be back in Vancouver again in the new year. And I'm looking forward to, if anybody hears this and is interested in acting, hit me up on Facebook. If you don't want me as your teacher, I can put you in touch with other people who are really, really good.
Sounds
beautiful.
Awesome. Thanks.
Yeah.
Sounds awesome. Thank you, everybody, again for watching the show. Take care and be nice. You know, it doesn't cost you a thing. And peace out.
All right.
A sense of community, Chilliwack's a place to be. A sense of community where you're free. Rolling through the mountains, rolling through the valley, rolling through paradise with me. It's multicultural, you're sure to see it all. Chilliwack's the place to be, you'll see. Come party in the park, go dancing after dark. Chilliwack's the place to be, you'll see.